Hi, it's Paul Camillos. Welcome to Series 5 of Shooting the Breeze. Join me and my co-host Jacinta Gavind as we talk to inspiring players, amazing coaches and the legends behind the scenes and at the grassroots of the game. This marks the start of our 4th year of covering women's hoops and women in hoops, and throughout the series we welcome experts like Lyndon Moore from New Zealand and other special guests from across the world to get a global picture of the game. During this series, we'll take a closer look at the grassroots and the passionate people at the community level. And of course, the 30th edition of the FIBA Women's Asia Cup was recently held in Sydney, where the Opals took bronze and Asia's best players put on a show. Hit that subscribe button, and to show your support, rate and leave us a review on iTunes so we reach more listeners.
And that's the greatest thing about the BAL for Her program. It's not just talk, it's us as a league and a continent putting our money where our mouth is. So I'm really proud to be part of this program. And, you know, Queen's seen a lot of different programs throughout her time as a journalist. And I think this is one of the first ones that's really walked the walk.
Our latest Passport Pod is a double African special. We welcome back Shooting the Breeze regular Coach Liz Mills after a fantastic BAL tournament where her team from Côte d'Ivoire took part in their first BAL. And joining us for the first time, we have Queen John-Moseph. Queen is a highly regarded sports journalist from Nigeria who, alongside Coach Mills, is focusing attention on basketball across the continent. Both are actively involved with and shining a light on the Progressive Basketball Africa League, emerging female basketball talent, and BAL for Her, a fascinating initiative that runs in parallel to the tournament and aims to elevate women in hoops across Africa in all aspects of the game. This pod was a long time coming, with a few restarts due to technical issues and conflicting schedules. But now, post-BAL, we're able to get this in the can, and it was worth the wait. Both Queen and Liz are having a tremendous impact for women in hoops in Africa and beyond, as Coach Liz is currently coaching the under-23 BAL for Her women's team, representing 9 African countries at the Global Jam in Toronto. It was great to get a glimpse of their respective journeys, how they overlap, and listen to their mutual appreciation and support at such an exciting time for African basketball. Enjoy. Welcome to Shooting the Breeze. Joining me and my co-host Jacinta Gavind, we have got Queen John-Moseph from Lagos in Nigeria and Coach Liz Mills, who's just got back to Australia after the BAL. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you both here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great to be back on the show with you and Jacinta, Paul. Always a pleasure.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We can't wait to talk about the BAL for Her, basketball in Africa. There's a lot going on, and we want to know as much as we can find out about it. Now, first of all, I have to congratulate you both on the BAL. For you, Liz, with the performance that the ABC Fighters had, and Queen for your reporting from the BAL as well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Look, we were very proud of our performance in terms of this was our debut season in the BAL, and we went up against a powerhouse Angolan club team, Petro de Luanda, but we were the only all-African team in playoffs, and so we were really proud of the team we put together. We had some of the best talent from the continent on display, and, you know, Angola are always going to be able to put in an amazing team as well. And a lot of people have said since that basically it was the game of the playoffs. We put everything we had on the floor, and even though we couldn't get the win, ended up losing by 4, we returned back to Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire with our heads held high, but very motivated to come back next season.
Yeah, I got to say, I actually sat down to watch part of the game again today, and it reminded me exactly how fast and how fast-paced the game was, particularly the first quarter. It was just go, 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 and it didn't really dial down too much for the rest of the game anyway.
Well, that was one of our specific plans of attack. The Angolans are a little bit older than us, and we knew that if we could push the pace, get some baskets in transition, it was interesting to see really that the referees really slowed the game down for us in the second half, allowing a little bit more contact after rebounding, which meant it was harder for us to get the ball out in transition, which helped the Angolans. But, you know, they're an extremely experienced team, really well coached, so they managed to tackle that a bit better in the second half. But African basketball is exciting like that. It's rarely, you know, slow and plodding. It's always fast-paced, a lot of athleticism on display, a lot of talent on display, and that's why the BAL is such a great league to watch.
Yeah, I've got to say, when I was watching it, our producer Mary actually was saying, this seems to be really fast-paced. And she asked me, you know, what do you think of this compared to the NBA? Look, to be honest, my opinion, it's a whole lot more fun to watch.
Oh, look, NBA is obviously the greatest athletes in basketball play in that league. But even sometimes for me, it's all about depending on the team that you're watching. If you want to see someone dribble 5,000 times, NBA is perfect. If you want to see one pick and roll, NBA is perfect. You want to see, you know, 4 people basically working for one person, NBA is perfect. And so for me, I much more prefer European basketball and African basketball, where it's a lot more team orientated.
Is African basketball more typically fast-paced or more typically physical, given that it sounds like you had 2 different types of games in one in your match you're talking about?
Yes. So, like, look, the older, more experienced teams want to play at a slower pace and really out-execute you. And whereas, you know, these younger teams such as like Stade Mali from Mali and ABC from Abidjan, we're a bit younger, a little bit more athletic. So we want to utilize that. And so we play at a higher pace. And then, you know, it's really about what works for your team. The Tunisians, for example, aren't as athletic, same with the Egyptians. So they're going to slow the pace down. But all in all, yeah, it is a physical league, and it's something that players from overseas have to adjust to. But it's all within the rules. It's nothing dirty or anything like that. They just, you know, they're going to let you know when you come down the floor that they're there.
So I want to ask Queen, from the point of view of somebody who was reporting on the BAL, how did you find the competition, and particularly from your perspective, that game between Petro and ABC Fighters?
Wow, that was an explosive game, very, very explosive. And I'll say it's more of like a very good advert for Africa basketball. I thought what I saw between Petro de Luanda and PS Al Ali, the Nile conference, was something to take home. But I think the game between Petro and ABC took it a bit higher. That was like a game that should have been a game of the finals. It was even more competitive and at top level than what we saw between Al Ali and the Senegalese team as one. So, but I was expecting sort of a final, or will I say sort of a quarterfinal, because of the 2 coaches involved, Coach Liz and also the other coach, Yose Neto, 2 top basketball coaches who know what to do on court, who understand the game, and who understand how to make use of their players so well. So I was expecting that game to be explosive, but at that level, oh no, they gave us a game to watch. It was a game of the century, I will tell you. It was a game of the century, and it went down the wire. It went down.
I appreciate that, Queen.
Yeah, it went down the wire, and I was just all over the place because
Oh, it hurt.
you know
It hurt.
it was going to hurt you. I know it was going to hurt you, and I was rooting for Coach Liz to go all the way because it would have been so much pleasure to go all the way. And then looking at how Petro also fell by the wayside, they couldn't even get to the final. So it was even more painful that they ended up defeating Coach Lee's team and could even make the final, which was even worse of all. So, but it was a disappointing one, not to see Coach Lee in the semis and then the final. But I think for neutrals who came to watch on that particular day, they went back home fulfilled because we feel that we have such a huge game from the African basketball scene, from the African basketball perspective. As Africans, we are seeing Africans play so well. And for a team who are an all African team, majorly African players on the team, you could say that it was sort of a platform to advertise the kind of qualities they have, the talent they do have. So in general, for Coach Lees as well, for Coach Neto, also Petro de Luanda, it was good advert for basketball, and they gave us something to take back home. And for the fact that the players had to make sure they were on top of their game, they almost nicked it. ABC almost nicked it. I would say Coach Lees, maybe that two free throws should have just gone in. It should have gone in. Anytime I remember that game, I'll be like,
Oh,
this free throw should have gone in. It should have.
oh,
Maybe a more experienced player. Maybe if
oh, look, and the Musa Kone is only, yeah, look, he's a 22-year-old. It
Yeah,
was
I
his
guess.
first time on a big stage, and asking him to win us that game was a little bit beyond him. But he has worked on his free throws since then a lot, so I'm sure it's something he will never forget.
Yeah, it's a game you would never forget, definitely.
And I got to say, you could see the intensity building as the game went on, right? And particularly, every so often, the telecast would do a cutaway to you, Liz, and you could just see on your face how it was just slowly kind of cranking up. And I thought, this is, you can see it's having like an effect on everybody there on the bench as well. Like you could see, everybody was willing those balls to go in. It really was. I think it was one of the best games I've seen for a long time.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And to be honest, we love the support that we get from not only our fans in Côte d'Ivoire, but from all around Africa and all around the world. And even, when we step in after the game and we have journalists such as Queen there, the support we get from even BAL staff who are manning the bench or, security people, everybody was rooting for us. So we did feel like we let a lot of people down. But on the other hand, we hope we made them proud with our performance. And we've got some fans for life that hopefully next season, if, I'm with ABC, that we can, win the title and they can be part of that journey again next year with us.
Liz, what was the response like in Abidjan?
Oh, look, when we flew home, everybody was really proud. And Queen can tell you this, we were written off.
Yeah, they were. I just wanted to add that I like the fact that you gave that game a good fight. You gave it all you've got, as much as you still lost, but you gave it everything. You put everything on the floor. Considering where you're coming from and where you are right now, you came from a club who didn't give you a chance. They didn't even give you a free roll to walk. They didn't give you the opportunity to have the players that you wanted to work with, or even the game itself. They made up of players that you didn't even want on your team. At the end of the day, AS Saleh didn't even come out strong like expected. So considering where you were coming from the previous season to this season, I think it's now like prove a point that Coach Lees should not be written off. Any team Coach Lees is coaching should always be a team to tip. It should be a team should always look that would go really, really far. So I think that game enough, despite the fact that you lost that game, it really proved to a whole lot of fans, a lot of neutrals who didn't believe in you, wouldn't believe that a woman could take a team as far as the quarterfinals or even the semi-final. So in as much as, yes, the player inexperience played a role, I want to assume you actually made the semis, if not for that few mistakes towards the end of the game. So I think this alone is, aside from the fact that it's advert for African basketball, for you as a woman, for you as a coach in Africa, it now builds the opportunity and opens opportunity for more women to also have that way to get into the BAL or to get to coach basketball clubs in Africa or even in their club sides in their countries. So they would have the opportunity to depend or to rely on women coaches. So this is an avenue to all the women coaches who wouldn't believe in themselves to have that belief. So I also want to use this opportunity to say ABC or Côte d'Ivoire really gave you that platform. And I'm so grateful they did that, because something Morocco couldn't do, Côte d'Ivoire has done it.
Exactly. And look, like I was saying, Queen can tell you the same thing, is that in terms of how people ranked quarterfinals, Petro was supposed to beat us by 20 points. No one had us competing with them at all. It was sort of like a Kenya situation. No one thought we were going to beat Angola and qualify for Afrobasket. And I love that position. I love being written off. And so we were like, everybody said to us after, you guys need to run this back, keep them together, because, you know, you do that, you're going to seriously contend for the title. And this is a team that's only had 1 year experience in the BAL. And so we got a lot of positive feedback that we're very happy to hear.
And again, Coach Liz, let me just give you an insight to what happened in the media room. Just an insight to what happened in the media room. I think we're making an argument, and we're like, Petro, ABC, no, Petro is going to win, just like you said, over 20 points. And I told them, I said, I wish we were going to record this. Coach Liz is not going to go down without a fight. She's going to put everything on the floor. She was like, Queen, why are you so much into Coach Liz? I said, she's not going to give that team just away. She's going to put everything. I mean, everything. So for each quarter, they came to me, Queen, what is your girl doing on the floor? I'll be like, I told you.
See, this is why Queen and I get on so well, because we back each other up all the time.
I want to come to a media room with you, Queen, one day.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, you both should come to the media room, because, like, win or lose, we have such a great time. I love our press conferences.
You should.
I want to ask something about. We will. We've got to organise one of those. A trip to Africa. But one of the things I was really curious about is how the crowds were also getting into these games, and particularly that game between Petro and ABC. It's not something we get to see here in Australia. We don't get to see crowds getting into the game the way they do at the BAL or in other African games. How do you feel when you've got, you know, the crowd getting right into the game the way they do when you're there and you're playing?
Oh, look, I love it. Having been to some tournaments during COVID and there was no crowds and no media, it was like being in a zombie dead zone. So now that we've got crowds coming back, we didn't have as bigger crowds in last season, but now that, you know, all the COVID restrictions are pretty much out of the way, it was great. It was a great example of African people showing how much they're getting into the sport and how much they're willing to support it. And what was even more beautiful is that you can have, like Queen was saying, someone who's neutral, like a Rwandese watching that Angolan versus ABC game, and now they can pick a team and they can pick an allegiance, and they're just there enjoying the game. Often before something like BAL or before FIBA restructured the national team schedules, we would often get just, you know, Angolan supporters and Ivorian supporters. And what's great is clubs are also big on bringing their own supporters, be that from Angola or Côte d'Ivoire, but also Ivorians and Angolans in Rwanda. And that's bringing an entire community back together. And so it's really beautiful to watch. And, you know, Queen could probably give you some more insights. She was able to sit courtside and get in amongst the crowd as well.
Yeah, and Queen, I'd like to hear from you about that, because watching a game again today, and one of the things that I actually noticed more this time was the crowd didn't seem to sit down for the whole game. They were up, they were dancing, they were getting into it, the decisions, they were making their opinions on the decisions known. It looked like the crowd was having way more fun than we see a lot of basketball crowds do.
I think aside the COVID restrictions that Coach Liz just mentioned, and basketball is coming back to normal, Rwanda is becoming a basketball culture. There's this culture taking place in Rwanda now. So it's now a tourist destination. Aside being a tourist destination, they are kind of infusing basketball into tourism, whereby you can come watch basketball as well as tour Rwanda. And they have so many tourist places to look out, just like in Australia. Australia, you do have tourist places to look out for. So Rwanda also has it. And so there's an opportunity for them. They are hosting the BAL and they know they'll have a lot of visitors from across the world come watch the BAL. So why not we create this avenue of entertainment and basketball? I know we see that in the NBA, we see a lot of entertainment, but this is quite different because they don't get to see this all through the year. So the BAL month is sort of a week where it's an opportunity for them to come with their best of stars perform, as well as basketball stars and all of that. So for the Rwanda fans, it's entertainment for them, both on the court and off the court. And that's why I saw that they were enjoying themselves. And it is a week filled with basketball games, with a lot of activities on the court and also outside of the court. So outside the court, there are fanfare. They also have a fan park. So it's all entertainment in one. And that is why the fans just see it as an opportunity to come there and have fun. So it's not just coming to watch the basketball side of it. They also come in to get entertained. And it's a full package, right?
When you talk about it, the entertainment package, I'm guessing there's activities going on outside the BK arena as well?
Yeah, they have a fan park outside here. They have a fan park where you can play a bit of basketball around. You can play games. They have a DJ. They have music ongoing. You can play some games. You can play some board games. So a whole lot of activities. You can buy foodstuffs. You can buy food to eat, drinks, and all that. So it's a whole lot of stuff outside the BK arena. So outside of that, you get to get that. Then inside the arena, you still have the basketball to get you entertained, and also at halftime or maybe at timeout, you have some entertainment in between to get you entertained. So you don't have your ticket just being exploited like that. It's a full package for fans coming to watch. So when you're coming to watch a basketball game, you know what you're coming in for. Are you coming for the outside event or the outside activities, or you're coming for what is happening on court? So all of this are all put together as entertainment for Rwandan fans, especially. Not forgetting that we also have fans who are coming from outside of Rwanda who want to make it a fulfilled one for the week before returning to their respective countries.
Well, it seems to me that the BAL has really worked on making it a true entertainment package for across the whole BAL. Now, one of the other things I noticed during the game was that both teams were wearing Bell for her shirts on the bench.
Yeah.
I'd like to get a bit more information about Bell for Her and what that program's all about.
Queen, do you want to answer first?
Okay. Okay, let me go first because I think I was privileged to take part in the BL for her in Kigali this time around. Unlike in Dakar when we had the first taping, I didn't get involved so much. Côte was among the panelists. But this time around, from the Dakar, they had the BL for her is majorly a mentorship program where young girls would learn from different people from the industry, from the sport industry. It could be coaches, it could be administrators, it could be marketing, the marketing department, operations. It could be from journalists and like you and I. So irrespective of the industry or the sectors they come out from or they belong, good group of girls would pick an area of interest where they belong, and then there will be group sessions, there will be panel sessions on different topics on those areas. Like in Dakar, we had Coach Liz talk about her journey in basketball, how she started, and then she also gave advice to the young girls. These young girls are maybe from high school, or those ones just getting into college or out of college, searching for jobs, who are still job hunting, or girls who are just getting into college. So these are the age bracket, like from 18 to about maybe almost 25, 27. I think that's the age bracket most of the time we get to see. Then in Kigali, aside from the fact that we had panel sessions for these ladies, there were up to like 30 or 40 participants who came for the BL for her in Rwanda. They also had camps. There were camps for basketball. They were trained, and they had coaches come train them, come talk to them about basketball for those of them who had interest in playing basketball. We also had different sectors, the ones that were interested in joining the media space, the ones interested in joining journalism, social media, content creation, operations, coaching, and the rest marketing. They had different sectors. They had panel sessions for these girls. And at the end of the day, like the one that took place in Kigali, they took the girls to a cranes village. Cranes, that's a group of birds in Rwanda right there. And afterwards, they were asked to plant a tree. I was even part of that. We planted a tree on that particular day. So it's basically for young girls to grow, mentorship, mentoring those girls and see how they can follow up with their mentors and then also get career opportunities from this. So this is what the BAL for Her is all about, and also encourage girls that they could do it. They could also be a part of the BAL, like the BAL gives opportunity to women. Like Coach Liz is a coach of the one of BAL teams. They have different women in different sectors, the operations, management, media, just like in Usher, who is the commentator for the BAL. So different sectors where women operate. So these girls can emulate from these mentors and these women, and they can also be like them or even do better than them.
And what's really exciting about this program is that for the first time, there's going to be a BAL for Her team competing in the Basketball Canada Global Jam, which is an under-23 national team tournament that Basketball Canada puts on the same time as Summer League in July. And so we're going to see a BAL men's under-23 team, but also a BAL for Her under-23 women's team. And so this will be a very exciting tournament because I will be head coaching the women's team for BAL for Her. And it's going to be the first time in 12 years that I'm coaching a women's team and the first time that I am ever coaching an African women's team. So I'm really excited about the opportunity. And this stems from the great work that BAL has done in promoting this program. As Queen said, obviously, women across the entire ecosystem, but also for the female athletes. Obviously, this is a men's league, but BAL has done an amazing job to incorporate women at all levels in the league as well. And this will be a great opportunity for these young women to represent Africa at the Global Jam in Canada next month.
So it sounds like a very strong effort, get women more involved in basketball, but also creating pathways to keep them involved as well, which is always a big topic of conversation, especially in the last 12 months when we've gone to the She Hoops events or the events at the FIBA Women's World Cup last year. So it sounds like the BAL and BAL for Her is actually putting some of that talk into action.
Exactly, Jacinta, because how often have we sat in rooms where everybody's like, oh, we're going to do this, this, and this, but we know we haven't seen it actioned. And that's the greatest thing about the BAL for Her program. It's not just talk. It's us as a league and a continent putting our money where our mouth is. So I'm really proud to be part of this program. And, Queen's seen a lot of different programs throughout her time as a journalist. And I think this is one of the first ones that's really walked the walk.
And remind us when the tournament is on in Canada that you'll be coaching at.
Yeah, so it's going to be the 12th to the 16th of July. On the men's side, it's Canada, Germany, and I think Puerto Rico and the BAL team. And then on the women's side, we've got Team Canada, Puerto Rico, Louisville is representing Team USA, and then BAL for Her. So games on the 12th, 13th, and then 15th and 16th.
I hope that it's televised in some way, like even if it's on YouTube, because some of the dates clash with the Under-19 Women's World Cup.
I know. So, yeah, I think it's all on YouTube. I will let you know as soon as I find out more details, though.
Now, just going back 1 second, you're coaching a women's team. No, you're not.
I thought I'd sneak that in.
Now, how are you feeling about that? Because, like you said, it's been a long time since you've coached a women's team.
Well, it's pretty funny because I've had 2 WNBL teams approach me for the upcoming season to work with them. And it was a pretty easy decision to say not right now, but I was very appreciative of them even thinking of me. But it was an easy decision to do this because I've never really had an opportunity to work with African women. And I've been so caught up on the men's side that this is a great opportunity for me to give back to all the women who have supported me in Africa. But I am very nervous. I've spoken to a lot of of my female friends who are coaches who work with senior women's teams, like Renee Garlop, who's currently assistant coach with the Opals and obviously New South Wales under 20 state team. She and I caught up last week and I was like, what do I do? Like I've never coached before. So, she really gave me some great advice. And all these women playing in Division I colleges in the US have played at, under 19 World Cup or played for their, African national teams. So they're all elite players. And, I'm sure it's going to be an amazing experience. And I can't wait to meet them all in person.
I imagine when you asked Renee, what do I do? Her response would have been, what do you mean?
She says the same thing to me, like in terms of like coaching men. She's like, I don't know how you get up and do it. And so, she's such a capable coach. She can coach anyone. And I'm just so glad that she's got this Opal position. She's the perfect person to really step into that pathway. And so actually it was more just about how I communicate and how I build relationships with these women, especially in terms of I hadn't really thought about how intimidating I would be towards them. And so I've really made a concerted effort to reach out and connect. Even before we get to Canada, I've set up all these Zoom meetings, one-on-one and team meetings, just so that we're really well prepared because we have such a short period. And I'm also going to probably have to lighten my touch when it comes to delivery of instructions and setting expectations because I have an extensive vocabulary that might not be appreciated by young women.
No, surely not.
And sometimes be prepared for the, you give an instruction but what if this happens? And what if this happens? And it's like...
Yeah. Well, I've also in terms of what kind of sets can I use because I don't watch a lot of women's basketball. So there's some standard sets that we would use on the men's side, like horns and diamond in Africa. And so I'm like, well, what do they run on the women's side? And actually, I should talk to Queen. Queen, we need to have an offline conversation and just get a better understanding of the trends. Like, for example, Renee was like, women can't break down their defender one-on-one. They need picks in the offense to be able to do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so, or I've got plays that end with a dunk. And so I'm like, okay, let's have a look at how we can redo some of these things. But the women's game is different. It doesn't mean that it's not as good. And I'm really excited to get the opportunity to put my foot back in the water for this guest coaching. And, maybe it inspires me to come back to women's basketball later down the track.
Something else I wanted to ask you about, Liz. When we first talked to you and had you on the pod back a few seasons ago, there was very little media interest in what you were doing in Africa. Sorry, I'm speaking of in Australia. One of the things I've noticed recently, particularly maybe over the last 6 to 8 months or so, is that seems to have turned around. There seems to now be a lot more interest in what you've been doing over in Africa. How do you feel about the fact that people are just starting to realise what you've done?
Having coached in Africa and immersed myself in Africa for so long, I wasn't ever really perplexed about why the Australian media didn't pay attention to me because I'm very well aware of the boys' club that exists in Australia. Because they couldn't say that I was one of their own, it didn't surprise me that I didn't necessarily get the media coverage that I did elsewhere. And that's also because Africa is an unknown to a lot of Australian players, coaches, even the federation. And so it was kind of like, well, what's she doing? What's the competition like there? And it was just a lack of understanding and a bit of naivety around, the leagues in Africa. And so it's not necessarily their fault. A lot of Australians don't coach or play in Africa. And so it never really bothered me because the only people I really embraced in terms of media was Africans because they've embraced me so well over 12 years that as long as I'm promoting Africa and Africans appreciate what I'm doing, I'm happy in that bubble. And sure, it was great when, ESPN, BBC or whoever come knocking because that allows me to shine a spotlight further on African basketball. But, in Europe and North America, there's so many Africans, competing or coaching in basketball leagues in those continents. So it makes sense for them to have more interest in what's happening in Africa. But look, I think I've been a lot more embraced in Australia, like you said, over the last 6 months. I think it has a lot to do with Lauren Jackson, who's reached out to me. And, I've done an interview for She Hoops. I was part of the FIBA Women's World Cup panel. And, I've made a concerted effort to reach out to more female coaches here through the Global Women in Basketball Coaching Network. So I think it's a two-way street. I wasn't really fazed about whether they were paying attention to me or not. But as they kind of clued in on what was happening, let's just say we've got more of an olive branch situation. And I think, as long as I have people like Queen in my corner, other African journalists who have done an amazing job covering my career and the teams that I've worked with, to be honest, I couldn't care less about what else is going on. If someone wants to reach out, and it's a great platform to speak about basketball and, the real issues in our sport like gender equality and social activism, then I'm more than happy to jump on their podcast, interview, whatever, be that in Australia, Europe, North America, wherever.
And how is the program going? Because it's probably, 12 months old now?
Yeah, so we're 12 months in. We've got about 550 members now, and we've probably held about 8 webinars during that time for where our leadership coaches have spoken about on-court or off-court basketball skills. And, we're getting great participation in those webinars, and the recordings are being viewed. And it's really just about Vic and I trying to figure out how we can improve engagement. I think it's so systemic that female coaches don't necessarily feel like they can speak up, or they're happy just to, sit back and learn without actively engaging. And so we're trying to think of new ways to continue to improve that so that we can get more transfer of knowledge between, say a French coach, an Australian coach, a Nigerian coach, or a Canadian coach, and how we can promote that a bit more in the next 12 months. But overall, we're really happy to have had so many members, and we've got so many great coaches in there. It's actually really amazing. And some of the insights and solutions that we've been discussing have led to great discussions.
There's a lady I play against on Tuesday night social comp who is also part of it, which I think is really cool for the sense of reach, because as someone who I only met from playing social comp, I noticed they started to come to our local NBL1 games, and it turns out they're the head coach of the under 14 men 2s or 3s. And I was like, oh, you should join this. And she goes, oh, no, I'm all over it. So the reach has been pretty impressive.
Love it.
One of the things that I'm kind of curious about is what's the involvement of women in basketball, not just in the coaching roles, but all other roles within the sport, and that includes journalism as well. How's that playing out across the continent? And I might throw that one over to you, Queen, first.
I think it's quite good compared to what we've had 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Might just see a ratio of 20-1. That's years ago. But now we could see a ratio of maybe in 10, you could see 3. I still feel there's so much work to be done in terms of interest into the sporting industry as well as journalism in Africa. I still feel more women need to be encouraged to get in because they need their voices to be heard. They need to come out more, of which I'll say that's one sort of a challenge for African women. Always, some are timid, some are shy, some don't want to come out. But I think as the year is going by, education, information is gradually growing, and more women are beginning to understand the reason why they should come out, why they should talk, why their voices need to be heard, why they should also sit at the same table as the men, why they should also take part, why they should also be involved in activities, especially in sport. So, but I think it's fair enough now. like I mentioned earlier, we have Osher as a BL commentator. I'm into journalism, media space. We also have other women like the BL. I'll use the BL as an example. They have women in operations, women in the marketing department, women taking charge of administration, different section or different sectors of the BAL. We have women in the various sectors of the BAL. We always have women. Women are all over the place. Even in terms of production, we have women as well. We in security, we have women as well. So, but I think opportunities are there for women to come in to take it. Fair enough, it's fair. That's what I will use. But I still feel that more women should be encouraged to get in. They need to be heard. They need to come out more. They need to come talk more. They need their voices to be heard. So I'll just use fair enough. It's fair enough as we speak. But I think African women can really do better. And I think that's more reason why the BL for her is there, to give sort of an advocacy for women to come out more, to come talk more, to come and take part, to come and participate more, not just sit and watch, not just be a watcher, but be a participant. So that's the way it is right now in Africa.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with you, Queen. I think, but what's also added to an increase in participation is the visible role models. Like last year we had Coach Caddy was the assistant coach for AS Douanes and the BAL. We obviously have Queen representing journalists. Usher is the commentator. Sarah is a great person from London who's head of the NBA International Security Department. We've got table officials, our commissioners are females, our referees are females, but it is a very unique environment and it doesn't reflect what we see in national team competitions or road to BAL competitions. So the BAL is very much leading the way for Africa. And if anything, it's actually leading the way for any professional league in the world. But what we need to see more is grassroots development of, women to be able to participate not only as coaches, officials, referees, but on the management side. And it's up to federations to provide those opportunities. But if women don't know about these opportunities or don't feel encouraged to participate, that's where we're going to see a decline in participation. And so we all know that FIBA, one of FIBA's pillars is women in basketball. And so it's up to these federations to honor that mandate and not only just talk about it, but actually provide programs or training courses, whatever it may be, to engage more women in Africa across the entire ecosystem of basketball. And like Queen said, yes, the BAL is the shining light, but there's still so much work to be done. I mean, just imagine how much more impactful it would be if there was an African woman coaching one of these men's teams.
And to put a timeline on those initiatives too, like a target. Yeah, I think sometimes it's great to have those things thought about and on paper. But from memory, I can't really remember how many of them have, by this date, this is the increase in engagement we want to see or whatever. I don't know if they have a measurable outcome for those.
I actually don't think they do, Jacinta. I think because it's still such an early initiative, because it's only 2019 that they put this mandate in at the FIBA level. So, we're 4 years gone, but 2 years, almost 3 years of that was COVID. So I think, come the next 4 years when they come together to plan that, I would, like you said, I would love to see some numbers and some targets that every federation has to reach. I mean, we look at, the FIBA Eurobasket for women that just kicked off. There are 3 teams in that women's Eurobasket that don't have any female coaches. There's only 4 teams that have female head coaches. 12 of those teams have male head coaches. And this is 2023. That's not good enough. But that also is a reflection that we don't necessarily, there hasn't been a pipeline that has allowed women to progress in those countries to that elite level. And that's why I'm saying all the time, we have to develop the grassroots first. We have to develop a base so that we can get women going all the way through the pathway.
Based off of that, what do you think is probably the one thing that could be done to be able to try and boost that? When you say grassroots, like What specifically do you think could be done to be able to really get that to kickstart?
Oh, yeah. What can be done to kickstart that? Well, look, it's a complex question. It starts with FIBA setting those mandates. It starts with federations developing programs. It starts with, the Ministry of Sport in these countries providing proper funding for these federations as well. In Africa, it's a complex ecosystem where they rely heavily on government sponsorship. In some countries, that's the only sponsorship they're allowed at the national team level. They're not allowed to look for outside sponsors. And so it's hard to develop programs when you lack funding. But also it's about getting basketball in schools and starting early. And that's, promoting basketball for boys and girls at a young age, and also identifying, referees, coaches, officials, etc., at a young age as well, and developing, like we do with long-term athlete development. There needs to be long-term coach development, long-term referee development. All these programs need to be implemented, but fundamentally, you need to have someone in these federations has to want to develop basketball. And unfortunately, Queen can talk to this as well if she feels comfortable. Yeah, a lot of the time, federations in Africa are not run by the appropriate people that should be developing the game in those countries. A lot of these people are elected for power, prestige, and money, and they have no interest in developing the game. And that's what's like administration of the sport is what's hampering the development on the continent.
And people say sport isn't political, right?
I know.
Understatement of the century.
So I actually want to ask Queen a question here. You've been a basketball journalist for quite some time. Where did you learn to love basketball?
Wow. Okay. Like in Africa, our major sport, or let's say our first sport is football, or what Americans call soccer. It's always that's like the number one sport in Africa. Basketball is like number two. I don't know for other countries, but in Nigeria, football is first, then basketball second. So, but I started off with loving football. I think for me, I've always had that basketball on my face, but never for once wanted to have that interest in basketball. So, but I think it started off for me when I was back then still working on radio as a radio presenter in 2013, 2014. I think the interest started off with the Golden State Warriors. They sort of had that, I just sort of liked the team. Like, who is this team? Like, where are they coming from? All of a sudden, strength in numbers, and all the way to the 2015 championship, winning it with Steph Curry. So I picked the interest from them based on how they played together, the teamwork, the team chemistry, and how they were able to shoot the ball. I was like, wow, this sports kind of look interested. So I think that was when the interest started off because of the Golden State Warriors. But I've always loved Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan has always been in our faces. Kobe Bryant has always been in our faces. LeBron James has always been in our faces. But majorly loving basketball started off with loving the Golden State Warriors and how they play, how they shoot the ball. But bringing it locally, following the game was in 2015 when I'm the media manager for River Supers. That's one of the teams who went to the BAL in the first season from Nigeria. So, but it started off with when they went on relegation and they were coming back on relegation, game promotion, and they needed to be on the spotlight. They needed more positive media. They needed to be in the faces of people because they were two-time champion of Nigeria. So imagine the two-time champion of the country going down relegation because of financial reason, like what Coach Lee's mentioned. Federation problem, administration problem, corruption problem is always a big issue in Africa. So, but putting the right people right there, it's always a big problem. So they had financial issues. They couldn't continue. They couldn't sponsor or, like, say, fund the club like should it be run, and they went to relegation. So imagine a two-time champion of the league coming back from relegation. So they needed more publicity. They needed more positive publicity. They needed to be out there that they are back and they are ready to compete as much as all the other teams. So they needed someone in the media space. So I got in and applied for the job and I got the role. From there, the interest started building. And when you're in the midst of You're just the only one who is basically a football person, and you're in the midst of 12, 13 players who are basketball players, basketball coaches. You just have to blend. You just have to join them. So every game we go for away games, we play home games. I get to hear and see them talk about basketball. I go to training sessions. So from there, the culture grew for me. I loved it more. I saw reasons why this sport should be loved more, why this sport should be given more attention. Is not given as much as attention as football does. So the love for the game started more from it. I learned more from it because when they're talking, they talk about the NBA, they talk Euro basketball. So it was like I had to mingle. I just couldn't be left out. So I had to learn more from them. Also going to the training session, so going for games. So I think that was how the interest built for me. And funny enough, I even didn't know how to write a basketball report at that point. So I had to learn on the job. It was as bad as that. I had to learn on the job, not like someone had to teach me. I had to read more of basketball reports from the NBA, from Yahoo Sports, from the ESPN. I had to read a whole lot. Like I was a student all over again. So I think that was where the love grew. And then I also spotted the fact that there were not too many basketball journalists in Nigeria. There were majorly more of football and less of basketball. So I took it as a decision for myself. I said, okay, I think this is a niche I can build for myself. I know, yes, I started off as a sport journalist doing a whole lot. If you're a radio presenter in Nigeria, you're expected to know like 8 or 7 different kind of sport or have an idea of different kind of sports because you are feeding a lot of audience. A lot of audience are listening to you. So I said this time around, and good for me, I switched from being a radio presenter to writing to digital. So I think that alone, I had to now streamline myself to basketball reporting. So I said, okay, I think there is a niche missing. There are not too many basketball journalists in Nigeria. And even for women, we don't have a woman covering basketball alone. We just have too many sport journalists who are just doing a bit of everything, but we don't have one doing basketball. So I said, okay, this is a platform for me to build on. And I think it started off for me in 2016, and here I am today. So that was how it started for me. And I loved it. I built a culture for myself, built a pathway for myself, and I saw reasons why I should stay on it. And I think it's been worth it.
Look, from our perspective, I mean, and I'm not going to speak for Jacinta, but I certainly really enjoy going through your reporting on basketball, and particularly at the BAL. And so, quite honestly, I think you do a fantastic job. And obviously that's been recognised by the fact that you've been nominated as Nigerian basketball media personality.
Queen, did we lose you? I think we did. I definitely voted for her, that's for sure.
Yes, you're back. Have we lost Queen again?
I think so.
So, guys, it's been great having you on the show. As always, Liz, it's great hearing from you and hearing what's happening over in Africa. I think there's a lot more that we're going to be seeing coming out from Africa. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more players getting recognised on the global stage. And I think you're also doing a lot in terms of raising that profile, and certainly here in Australia, because people are taking notice of what you're doing and what you've achieved over there. And I really want to thank you both for being on the show. It's always great having you here.
Well, likewise to you, Mary and Jacinta, who have done such an amazing job, not only promoting basketball in Australia, but especially women in basketball. And I've always loved the appreciation and love that you've shown to African basketball. And so thank you for, again, having me on the show. And as always, appreciate the support.
No worries. And we're looking forward to seeing how things work out for you over in Canada. And maybe, with any luck, we'll see you perhaps at the Asia Cup.
Potentially, if I'm in the country.
Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Shooting the Breeze can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Don't forget to subscribe and share the podcast with all your friends.